Well, it's that time of year again. Time to deck the halls with boughs of holly and fill your TV screens for the next month with depraved holiday horror. Today, I want to give you guys 10 Christmas horror movies that I think you need to watch. Hey, what's up everybody? Nick here, and today I am really excited to be sitting down with you at the beginning of December to give you guys your guide of horror viewing for the month of December, leading up to Christmas. Now, I did this in October, and I did it every day leading up to Halloween. I'm just going to do 10 here. There are a lot of Christmas horror movies that you can choose from, and I've been happy to say that in the last 10, 15 years, we've gotten more and more, though I still don't think we have enough. So I picked 10 of my favorites in no particular order, and I'm going to start this off right now with the first one I think you need to watch being Inside. Now, Inside is a movie that was genuinely unsettling, and I watched this at Christmas time years ago when my ex-wife was pregnant with my son. Now, as soon as you watch this movie, you will understand why it was probably not the best movie to watch while you were awaiting childbirth. This movie is gloriously depraved. I really like the concept of someone trying to steal a baby before it's born. I find that to just be super uncomfortable. The movie also is just incredibly gory. It is really, really suspenseful, and I think it plays on the Christmas aesthetic really well. This was one that I did not anticipate going into yearly rotation for me, but it has. So I'm happy to say the first one you need to watch is Inside. Next up is going to be one that I caught on Shudder last year, and I am so glad that I did. And that is Christmas Bloody Christmas. Look, there's a lot you can nitpick about this movie, and most people have. A lot of people say there's way too many F-bombs in the movie. It's not how people talk. I understand that, but I think it also depends on where you're from. Some people actually do talk like that. I also don't think all of the acting in this movie is incredible, but I didn't need it to be, because everything else about this movie friggin' rules. First and foremost, when it comes to a holiday horror film, you better nail that atmosphere, and this movie is dripping in it. It looks and feels like Christmas all throughout, every single frame of this movie. This movie is like an old school slasher where you're not meant to take all of it so seriously. You're not really super invested in all the characters. It's more about watching this robotic Santa Claus butcher people in absolutely horrendous ways. And the movie delivers on that. So if a Christmas horror movie for you is something where it feels and looks like Christmas and there's a ton of blood and guts, then Christmas Bloody Christmas is genuinely one of the best times you can have this time of year. Now it's time to pay homage to some of the classics, and the first of those classics being the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. You know, one of the things I love about this movie is the controversy behind it. The fact that this movie was boycotted by the Catholic Church is hilarious. The fact that it was major news. I mean, if any of you guys watching right now lived through that, I want to hear some of the experiences down below, because I just remember reading all about how insane that was. And to think 40 years later, that's just not even a thing anymore when it comes to these movies, but back then it really was. Look, Silent Night, Deadly Night is by no means a great movie. I will argue that it has a great aesthetic, some really awesome kills, some inventive kills too, especially for its time. But that's really all it needs to be. Kind of like with Christmas Bloody Christmas, some of these movies don't have the best performances. And Silent Night, Deadly Night is one of those where you're just like, okay, these characters are whatever, but I'm having a really good time and it is evoking the Christmas spirit from me. Now, this is a long-running franchise, and I'm actually looking forward to eventually getting a revamped version of this film. We got one in 2012. I wasn't the biggest fan. I do plan on rewatching it this year because it's been at least a half a decade since I've seen it. But the franchise as a whole, it's more misses than hits. But if I had to recommend two of them to you, it'd be this one and Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker, because that movie is genuinely depraved and just fun. It's a blast. Next up on my list is a movie I have talked about on my channel, and it is one that is severely underappreciated, underrated. Nobody talks about it. And that's P2. Look, this is an exception to a lot of what I've already talked about. This is a movie that is very character driven. Now, of course, it leans into the Christmas music and aesthetic, and it's great. It evokes that Christmas holiday vibe from you. However, This movie is led by incredible performances. Rachel Nichols is fantastic as the lead in this movie, and Wes Bentley is a truly gleefully depraved, psychotic mastermind. I mean, I really don't know what else to say. He plays the role perfectly. He is absolutely messed up in the head, but he's also really charismatic. Like, I don't know, you like him at the same time. This movie really is claustrophobic, and it takes this idea of being trapped on Christmas Eve, and it's, you're in a building, your options are limited. I just really love that. Now, of course, like I said, it looks and feels like Christmas, and they lean into that heavily, but this, unlike some of the movies I've already mentioned, really is anchored by some great performances and some truly suspenseful moments. And I think P2 is a movie that needs to start getting more love because it's incredible. And Scream Factory, where the hell is a Blu-ray? Next up is another one that everybody loves, and for good reason, and that is Krampus. Look, I'm actually debating this year showing Krampus to my son for the first time because he keeps talking about it. He keeps pulling the 4K off of my shelf and going like, what is this? What is this? And I tell him and he's like, I want to watch Krampus. And I'm thinking maybe I could, because it's honestly not like scary. It's more just fun. Krampus is one of those movies, a lot like Trick or Treat, and it makes sense because it's Michael Dougherty. It is not scary at all. It's really not trying to scare you. It is leaning into everything about the holiday that is absurd or over the top, while also leaning into the heartwarming nature of that holiday. It feels very kid-friendly while also having some really gross moments and truly adult situations. But it marries the two perfectly, and I think that is just a credit to Michael Dougherty. The cast is absolutely loaded, the effects are great in this movie, and it honestly, at the end of the day, kind of does feel heartwarming at times, which is really weird because, it's almost the antithesis of that at the same time. Look, Krampus is a yearly watch for me. I can't get enough of this movie. And honestly, if you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing with yourself? Next up is a new addition to the party, but a very welcomed one. And that is Terrifier 3. And I'm so friggin' glad that the Terrifier franchise has 2 movies now that heavily lean into respective holidays, with Halloween and then Christmas. Look, the thing that works really well about Terrifier 3 is that it doesn't even need to be watched around Christmas time, but it almost should be. Because especially for the first half or so of this movie, it really plays off of that and plays into the aesthetic and everything about the holiday. It looks like that time of year. It feels like that time of year. They really ham it up with the Christmas stuff, and I love that. And I think there's something striking about Art the Clown in a Santa suit. I don't know. And I mean that in a good way. It's just so intoxicating. I cannot help but love every second of it. So I'm really glad to say that a new movie has made it into my yearly rotation of Christmas horror films. And then piggybacking off of that is going to be one that I saw in theaters last year that I had a really, really, really good time with, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. And that's It's a Wonderful Knife. Look, the movie isn't exactly super hard R-rated, terrifying, gross out. No, it's not. It's very in the vein of Happy Death Day or Freaky, movies like that. And I've had a really good time with all of those kind of movies, those self-referential meta comedy horrors that play more toward teens than adults, but I still think they straddle the line well. And It's a Wonderful Knife is another one of those movies. I think it's got really great performances. I freaking love Justin Long in this movie and the fake teeth. I just love it. And I think it's actually kind of heartwarming. And it shouldn't be weird to say that when I'm talking about Christmas horror films, because although they're horror films, they're still Christmas films. And they should still kind of have that heart. And It's a Wonderful Knife does. So it's fun, it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's got some good kills, and I don't know, it plays into the aesthetic and the atmosphere really well, so I'm glad to put it on this list. Next up is going to be Better Watch Out. In this movie, I am glad to say I knew nothing about it going into it, so I genuinely was surprised at a lot of it and had a good time. However, if you learn too much about this movie before you see it, you're not going to have as good of a time. I think it's best to go into this movie blind, so I'll be really vague, but let me just say, it is surprising in a lot of ways. It's not at all what it presents itself as at the beginning. It's delightfully funny and gory and bloody. It's kind of like an R-rated Home Alone, and there's even a nice callback to it. And it just really plays up the Christmas. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Better Watch Out except for I find the movie really fun. And I know that I can tell you from experience, years ago, I showed it to a group of friends, and they genuinely halfway through, none of them were enjoying it. So maybe I'm on an island here, but I think the movie's really, really fun, and I think if you go into it not knowing anything about it, you'll have a good time. Now, the top two are the top two. Everything else was just in no particular order. These are the top two, in my opinion. Number two is going to be the original Black Christmas. And look, let me just say this right off the bat. This film, in my opinion, is the best, hands down, Christmas horror film. It is the best in terms of quality. I think that there is something so messed up about the premise. This movie really gets under your skin and kind of just burrows into you. I mean that. And if you guys, if it's not your thing, at least meet me halfway there and say, the idea that somebody's in the house, the things the person is saying on this phone call, that looming threat throughout the entire movie is really effective. It's got great performances. I mean, it truly does. I love Olivia Hussey in this movie. I even love Margot Kidder in this movie. And I know she gets a lot of shit, but I like her in this movie. She's super, super fun. There's a lot to love about this movie. Not to mention John Saxon again playing a cop, because it's his best role ever. He just got typecasted as that, and good, he's fantastic. Look, Black Christmas really tackled some things that were really prescient at the time. This was just a couple years after Roe versus Wade became the law of the land in America, and the movie kind of really plays off of that. There's definitely a side plot that was pretty progressive for its time. But the movie is genuinely frightening. It is a slow burn build-up that gets you to a third act that is surprising in a lot of ways. And you can imagine if it were you in this situation, you'd probably crap your pants, because I would. So honestly, Black Christmas, it is the best Christmas horror film, but it's not my favorite. Coming in at number one, my favorite Christmas horror movie is Black Christmas 2006. Now let me just tell you guys something. Before any of you come at me in the comments and say, oh my God, the remake is nowhere near as good as the original, you're right. The original is a far better movie. But I have more fun with the remake. And why is that? Well, because the remake does a lot of what the first one does well, the creepy phone calls, the person inside the house, but it just decides to go over the top. And I love that about this movie, because you're not going to recapture what the original did. You are not going to best that movie. So if you're going to remake this loosely, how can you do it in a way where you're going to stand apart? What if we just get super gory, super over the top, super corny, super cheesy, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks? And I'm happy to say that most, if not all of it, sticks. Though I don't know if I needed the Billy and Mom scene. I don't think I needed that. This movie is how you do a Christmas horror movie. Lights everywhere. Decorations everywhere. Snow everywhere. Everywhere. Music, Christmas music everywhere. It is just out the wazoo. You'll hear a dozen Christmas songs in this movie. Christmas trinkets used as weapons, candy canes, you name it, everywhere. This movie is littered with Christmas. So if your idea of a Christmas horror film being good is, I want great kills, I want over-the-top gore, I want to just have my TV screen brimming with Christmas aesthetic and atmosphere, this is the movie for you. Not to mention, just insanely good-looking cast across. Everybody's fun to watch because they're just nice to watch, nice to look at. This is easily my favorite Christmas horror film. I think it is a blast and a half, and I think that if you haven't warmed up to this movie by now, shame on you. So ho ho holy shit. That's 10 Christmas horror movies that I love, that I have a ball with, that I think you guys need to watch this December leading up to Christmas Day. But I want to hear down below in the comments section what you think of some of these movies. If you have seen them or haven't seen them, do you love them or do you hate them? Also, what are some others you would add to your list, maybe in exchange of ones that I said? I want to discuss all that down below and more. So please make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.